Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Raz, the semi-retired samurai, and here on this channel, if you haven't been here before, I talk about life after 50 and how we can improve it to live a more freer second chapter of our life. Now, I just did a video recently about aging alone, and I got a comment on there from one person whose comment I couldn't stop thinking about. And he said that it's easy for me to talk about dying alone when I have a wife. And he's correct. He is very correct. And I've been hearing, from people in the 50s or people who are in their 50s who want companionship but don't know how to go about meeting someone in this day and age. And I think there's a fear of dying alone and wondering, who am I going to spend it with? Who am I going to spend the next 20, 30 years with before I pass on? And I think the question is, is it possible to find real connection in today's world? And in this video, I want to explore 3 reasons why dating after 50 has become so difficult, and what has changed since we learned how to date when we were back in the 80s or 90s, and what would it take to find real connection in today's world without letting apps, rejection, or past disappointments force us to give up finding love entirely or connecting with someone. So the first one I want to discuss is, us 50-something-year-olds, we learned to date in a world back in the 80s where it no longer exists. Back in the 80s, we didn't have, dating apps. We met girls at a party or some significant other or potential significant other at a party, and you would talk for hours upon hours, and eventually at the end of the night, if you have a connection, you hope to get their number. And the good thing about it back in those days, right, I'm getting so old now, is we got to see, who the person was. We got to, see how they treat others, how our group of friends liked them. We got to see their sense of humor, and decided with that if we had a connection to move further on, to further relationship. But today, we work at home and we socialize a lot less, and we communicate a lot through, most of our communication is a lot through screens now. And a lot of us now, we just don't go out and socialize as much. For myself, I used to love going out and socializing and meeting new people, but even for someone like myself, I'm finding it harder and harder just to motivate myself to get out, and I kind of have to train myself to force myself to, get out there and meet new people. So because we don't go out as much now, we don't socialize as much, we don't see a lot of people or establishments where people, meet like we used to, the restaurants. And I think even I talked to one of my nieces who's a Gen Z, and she says that, their age group doesn't even go out to the clubs anymore to drink. They just kind of hang out at home. So how does that affect us as 50-year-olds? because, when I look at the apps, well, I don't really look at it, but when I talk to other people my age group or even younger, they, it's almost like you have a product listing, right? You just kind of swipe on the screen and make judgment on a person based on their photo in a few seconds, without even knowing them. And it's changed so much how we approach dating, because you're kind of looking for the imperfections and you're not even giving the person a chance, and you just, have so much, I guess the mentality is like, well, I can just check out the next, 10 profiles. And I think that's really sad, because, when I speak to people our age, or even some of my students who are millennials, I always thought that the dating now would be easier because you have more opportunities with the apps and you can head out, but that's not the case. A lot of them, even my cousin recently told me that it's really tough to meet someone new. And I was just in a wedding, attended a wedding back in June, and I had a cousin who's, she's fairly good, attractive, and she was asking me like, hey, do you know where I can find some guys to meet? And she's about 35 and has a great career, and and I was shocked. And she said that it's so tough to meet people, and she doesn't know where to go. And I thought that's quite strange, because for me, growing up, it was just this all seems foreign to me. And the thing about it is that the dating apps, as I mentioned earlier, it's turned people into products, and I find that really, really disturbing. Our dating profiles on these apps, they look like an Amazon product listing, to tell you the truth. You need the perfect photo, you need the perfect bio, and the person who is reading it is looking for a reason to swipe left without even getting to know you. The dating app really changed the way we evaluate people. Back in the day, when we were interested in a person, you got an opportunity to get to know them better, and you would sit down and talk to that same person for a few hours, or in the evening if you met at a party, and you kind of find out the qualities that you like, right? But the app, gives you endless choices, so you believe you don't have to compromise. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing, because you think about the times that you met somebody and maybe you weren't initially attracted to them, but eventually, you got to know their personality, and you found out that you had some commonality, and you were able to give that relationship a chance. I mean, I met my wife that way as well, and of course I was attracted to her right away, but I met her because I saw her at a business function, and we locked eyes. And I approached her afterwards, but what's funny about it is I was just having lunch with a millennial martial arts student of mine, and I asked her about the dating culture now, and she said that they don't do that stuff anymore because it seems kind of creepy. And I said, well, how do you know? How do you know that you two are attracted? And that could be. I said, what if this wonderful guy just walked into the restaurant right now and you found him attractive? And she says, oh, we just don't do that anymore. And I said, oh, and it shows you, how out of touch I am with today's world and the challenges of, meeting someone new. And I think that's, the dating apps, it's made us less patient and made us less patient with putting up with, I guess, people with just regular human imperfections, because, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect, and, but we have to learn to, for me, it was just learn to accept those imperfections, because not everyone's going to be perfect. And the other thing I want to mention is after 50, everyone arrives with a history or some baggage. And I think a lot of challenge, I know for myself, if I had to go back in the dating world after being solo and independent for such a long time, is am I willing to compromise on some of the things that I like and maybe some of the things I don't like in my new partner, right? Am I willing to share my life with another person that maybe doesn't fit some of the stuff that I want, right? It's kind of hard to change that after being, maybe you've been divorced, or maybe you've been widowed, or maybe you've been single for a long time. And you're used to, let's face it, we're used to having things done our way and a certain way. I know there are certain things that, even though I've been with my wife for over 2 decades, there's things that I like done a certain way, and there's things that she does that annoy me, and I'm sure there's things I do that annoy her. But in the end, we compromise to make the relationship work. And I think that's one of those things is are you compatible enough, and are you willing to take on those challenges as you look for a partner in the second chapter of your life to spend the rest of your life with. So what's the solution out of all this? You know what? I think, in my opinion, and I'm seeing events and all that start to embrace this concept, is that, we have to bring the human connection back into our dating lives. And the solution, I don't think, is just completely getting rid of all the dating apps. I look at it as, as another tool or another avenue to meet new people, especially if you live in a city or town that, has a small social circle. It can help you, get out there and meet some new people. I know some people I had some good friends that met through a dating app, and they got married, and they have a great marriage. So it's not all bad, right? Just, to me, just don't rely on it as your full dating strategy. And I think people over 50 might need to create environments where connection develop naturally. So I'm seeing events where they're having, get together dinner parties of 10 where people can, I guess, I don't know, I didn't click on the link, but I guess they can subscribe and go have dinner one weekend with a bunch of people who are over the age of 50. And I'm seeing some of these daytime 80s retro nightclub nights, which go from, I think, 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock, so you don't have to stay up late to line up like we used to, because none of us want to stay up till 4 a.m. in the morning anymore. I think it ends at 9, and you go out and have a good time. And I think that'd be pretty cool as well. I think having these, it's not just having it as a one-off, but having these recurring groups where, rather than just a one-time event, where you get to see people over time and start to develop the relationships that we did back in the good old days in the 80s and 90s. It could be classes, such as maybe volunteering, walking groups, community organizations, and also ask, your friends to make introductions. I don't see a lot of that being done nowadays. I remember back in the day when I was single, friends would always be asking me, hey, there's this girl that's really nice. I think they'll be a good fit for you. Well, why don't you come out here and let's get together for dinner and you guys can meet, and no pressure, and you guys can decide if you guys want to proceed. And I don't see that anymore, right? And the other thing guys can do is start saying yes to more invitations. Don't just I think a lot of us just default to just staying at home, and for many of us I think it's it's okay. I think it makes us happy, but even for myself, sometimes I feel like I'm going crazy in here. I better get out and have some form of social human connection, right? Instead of looking at the screen, and start start conversations with people instead of treating every interaction like it's some kind of audition for something, right? And the good thing about having these recurring environments where you meet people and see same people over again is you get to know them, because attraction doesn't just happen instantly, right? It's you get a chance to really get to know the person somewhat, and find out the beauty inside of them, and that it allows you to find out if the person's a good fit for the second chapter of your life. So that's all I have to say for today, and I just want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Tell me, what is a single thing that made dating harder in your 50s? I love to hear from you. Comment below, and if you like this channel and like my content, please feel to like, share, or subscribe. And also, I just created my new website, the semi-retired-samurai.com. Feel free to check it out. Subscribe to my newsletter where I share my thoughts and journey of life after 50. All right, I'm heading uphill now, so I'm getting a little bit of a cardio workout. So I'll see you next time, and feel free to check out my next video. All right, take care. Bye for now.